fashion freak show makes women feel?
Boo friggin' who? Like I'm supposed to take women and how they feel seriously? You want to be accepted for your minds, but you throw a hissy fit royale if someone isn't saying you look great 30 hours a day. You say you want a nice guy, but you only give it up to the creeps. You get to stay home, not go to war, live longer, and have sex whenever you want. So remind me again, exactly what is there to complain about?
Welcome to Manosphere Highlights Daily. Shout out to Mr. Purnell for this video. This is his message. Hello again, MHD. Glad to see the channel still going strong. I have yet another video suggestion. Adult cartoon Duckman, Season 3, Episode 17, Exile in Guyville. This show has a ton of great examples on the issues of modern dating, but this episode is just pure gold. Mr. Purnell, thank you for your message. Salute! Duckman is an animated television series that aired in the mid-1990s. It premiered on the USA Network on March 5th, 1994, and ran for 4 seasons until its conclusion on September 6th, 1997. Duckman is a satirical animated sitcom that follows the life of Eric T. Duckman, a private detective who is also a duck. The character is voiced by Jason Alexander. Duckman is portrayed as a rude, crude, and often incompetent detective who frequently finds himself embroiled in bizarre and humorous situations. The show is known for its dark humor, satirical take on various social issues, and surreal storytelling.
Here we see Cornfed wearing the revolutionary brassiere, which forms cleavage not only in front, but also in back.
Duckman's vaguely satanic fashion show captured a larger audience than the Mars landing and the Major Dad reunion combined. This, of course, led to the shot heard round the world.
Duckman, you animated sweat stain! I was happily enjoying Australian rules step aerobics when it was preempted by your felony of the week!
In this thought-provoking episode, aired 27 years ago, Duckman's sexist advertisements lead to a gender division, relocating men to the west side of the country and women to the east. As we delve into this narrative, we aim to shed light on its relevance to contemporary society, providing insightful commentary on what this episode got right and wrong. Remarkably, many themes remain strikingly relatable in today's modern times. Now it's time for us to get into this and do what we gotta do, because we.
You have any idea how belittled your fashion freak show makes women feel?
Boo friggin' who? Like I'm supposed to take women and how they feel seriously? You want to be accepted for your minds, but you throw a hissy fit royale if someone isn't saying you look great 30 hours a day. You say you want a nice guy, but you only give it up to the creeps. You get to stay home, not go to war, live longer, and have sex whenever you want. So remind me again, exactly what is there to complain about?
Wow, the duck was not lying. No lies spotted here. Facts, highlighting the paradoxical mindset women have. Especially the war aspect is taken for granted by a lot of feminists. Remember this?
It wasn't so long ago that men enjoyed a clear advantage in American society. But these days, a different story is emerging. Men and boys falling behind, and sometimes into despair. Lee Cowan takes a closer look.
The mainstream media and feminism pushes this idea that men had such a great life oppressing women and keeping them from progressing in life, which is false. Only when the world is built and safe do women begin to run their mouths. But if a war would break out today, women would be the first ones crying for protection, and all of that equality foolishness would go out the window. Look what's happening in Ukraine and Israel. Women and children first.
So remind me again, exactly what is there to complain about?
Men! You say we're irrational, but at least we think with a head on our shoulders. Left to yourselves, you'd have blown up years ago from a horrific blend of gunpowder, diesel fuel, and aqua velva. Your idea of commitment is not yelling someone else's name during sex!
Now here is where it gets interesting, because what you heard from the female duck is exactly what women resort to when they can't debunk men's arguments. or provide a plausible rebuttal to assert their value in contrast to men. Shaming language. Remember this?
So let me start by saying that, our society has a long way to go to actually fully cherish and respect women. It's like once a woman is no longer young, pretty, slim, or fertile, it's actually damaged goods. It's absolutely stupid concept, but this is something that we have to go against in our society.
I know we always talk about what and how women think about the passport bro movement, but there's really more to it than a man just wanting to leave the country trying to find a traditional wife.
Where the is from? Who the sponsored her ass to come to the U.S.? And why the is she putting her mouth in affairs? Got me out here stuttering and shit.
Shaming and trying to insult do not represent a valid rebuttal. They only add to the emotional aspect of the discussion. And of course, the female duck is allowed to put her hands on the male duck when she shames and insults him, all under the guise of comedy, of course. We recently made a video about this.
You fucking humiliated me tonight. You humiliated your son, and I am past arguing about it with you.
Duckman, you animated sweat stain!
Here's $5. Go buy me some beer and bullets.
And bandages!
To this day, 27 years later, it's still perceived as funny and acceptable for women to engage in physical and mental abuse of men in movies, commercials, etc., etc. And to this day, men are expected to roll with the punches. They are never expected to retaliate. And if they do, it's deemed unacceptable. To learn who rules over you, simply find out who you are not allowed to criticize.
And then something strange happened.
Honey, she's got a point. And another thing, you never share your innermost feelings. It's always sex, sports, and pizza.
But those are my innermost feelings.
If you don't start thinking about your feelings, I'll scream!
If you don't stop thinking about your feelings, I'll scream!
I hate you!
I hate you!
I have always hated you!
No one can hate anybody worse than I hate you!
Slug. Your mother was right! I should have listened to her!
Something about Duckman and Bernice struck a chord within the country's consciousness. Maybe it was the tenor of society, some primal awakening of the human psyche. Maybe it was just the cheap and barely believable device of a desperate writer. But whatever detente existed in the battle of the sexes went the way of the dodo bird, the Edsel, and professional baseball.
Professional what ball?
An even sadder story, Jimmy. Anyway, the Duckman-Bernice controversy swept the country. Breakups and divorces skyrocketed, and things got so out of hand they had to be settled in the U.S. Senate.
This is pure gold. This is exactly what happened. Women embraced feminist ideologies, and of course, factors like no-fault divorce, the diminishing influence of religion, the availability of the birth control pill, and the transition from the industrial age to the computer age, in conjunction with affirmative action, contributed to more women joining the labor force, thus contributing to the divide between men and women.
Without us, you wouldn't have anyone to fix your flats, find your G-spots, or tell you you're not fat. Which, by the way, you are!
Yeah. Without us, you wouldn't have anyone to clean your wounds, pick out your socks, or tell you your...
feet.
Are huge! Which, by the way, they're not!
Well, if living with us genitally challenged boogeymen is such a sucky thing, maybe you should just go live by yourselves!
Maybe we will!
Fine!
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 And so it came that men and women could no longer live together, and the nation was divided in half. The East, known for culture, went to the women. The West, known for cattle, went to the men. People were needed to guard the border, those who were sexually confused. Throughout the country, there was shock as people realized there was no turning back. And as always, it's the children who suffer. Painful as it was, mothers said goodbye to their sons, fathers farewell to their daughters.
This would never ever ever happen. But the divide between men and women is real when it comes to romantic relationships in modern society, with over 50% of adult singles considered the lowest number of singles in the history of the US. That's what they were discussing in the courtroom, romantic aspects of the male and female dynamic. They did not discuss politics and economics, which are extremely complex and would play a huge role in literally dividing the sexes on land. Check this out.
Women soon had their own restaurants. The men theirs. Certain movies were popular on the women's side and others on the men's. Of course, one thing still thrived on both sides. Yes, everyone was happy and fulfilled. Bernice settled comfortably into a house with 8 girlfriends.
Chocolate blackout cake for breakfast? Isn't that fattening? Who cares?
Dividing the country in two and separating the sexes on opposite sides of the country is something that would never benefit women, because men are the builders, providers, and protectors of society. Let's take a moment to think about the simple act of baking a cake, something we might not consider as a complex task. We saw the humor in the women casually enjoying a chocolate cake for breakfast. It's a funny scene, but it also raises an interesting point about the often unnoticed complexities involved in daily tasks, especially those traditionally associated with women. Baking a cake, for instance, requires not just the recipe and ingredients, but also access to tools, a reliable heating source, and of course, the electricity or gas to power the oven. The episode hints at the idea that these tasks, often taken for granted, involve a multitude of factors. So the next time you enjoy a slice of cake, remember that behind that delightful treat, there's a web of effort, skills, and resources that come together. You see these so-called strong and independent women struggle on these survivor shows because women lean more towards social fields and education, while men statistically show more interest in STEM fields. So when it comes to practical tasks like fixing something in the house, 9 out of 10 times a man is called upon to address the issue, and not just because of skills. Janice, read.
Brave Men and Timid Women? A review of the gender differences in fear and anxiety. Substantial evidence indicates that women report greater fear and are more likely to develop anxiety disorders than men. Women's greater vulnerability for anxiety disorders can be partly understood by examining gender differences in the etiological factors known to contribute to anxiety.
Girlfriend Bernice, I wonder if I could take a bath?
I'm afraid not. Spiders crawled into the tubs and we're all scared to go in.
But I thought women could do everything. We've been astronauts, heads of state, soldiers.
You don't understand, dear. These are spiders.
The biological differences between men and women play too much of a factor for women to thrive on their own. Women need us more than we need them.
Hasta la vista, babies! Don't let the gate hit your butts on the way out. Hey! Never forget, we're men, and men are stronger, smarter, and self-sufficienter than women. We're not just Homo sapiens, we're Homo superior. Yes, we're gonna make it after all, and we don't need women!
This is a terrifying thought because it's inevitable. There comes a time when biological women become superfluous for intercourse, reproduction, affection, intimacy, and companionship. Men will create their own companions, and this episode actually hints at the possibility.
The men exhilarated.
Wow, check out that hog!
Top of the morning, corn guy. You know, I was just thinking, to the extent my round-the-clock drunkenness allows me to think, we should have done this whole separation of the sexes thing years ago.
So the guys have blow-up dolls, but the women don't, and this speaks to the biological differences between men and women. the inherent distinctions in their needs. A sex robot would never work for women due to the spontaneous and emotional aspect and the need to feel desired. Unlike men, who might find satisfaction in physical stimulation alone, women often seek a deeper emotional connection and spontaneity in their intimate experiences.
Why hasn't he called? I knew he didn't really love me. Who can I play mind games on now?
How am I supposed to spend my evenings without tragically abusive one-night stands?
A robot lacking genuine emotion and the ability to respond spontaneously to a woman's desires cannot fulfill these essential aspects of female sexuality.
Meanwhile, Bernice had her hands full with the girls.
But girlfriend Bernice, they didn't seem like disgusting muck-swilling insects.
Girlfriend Emily, you have much to learn about the three-legged ones. Look around you. Without they who pee standing up, we have truly made the women's collective emotional state a democratic sisterhood of love, trust, generosity, and kindness.
Can you believe her hair?
All I see is a pair of thighs holding up some overstuffed leotards.
This is another aspect of the fact that women cannot survive without the supervision and protection of men. Jealousy and infighting because of stupid things like shoes and handbags. This is a must-read article. Janice, read.
Catfights over handbags and tears in the toilets. When this producer launched a women-only TV company, she thought she'd kissed goodbye to conflict. Samantha Brick, her business was ruined by the destructive jealousy and infighting of an all-female staff.
Yes, although men and women pretended to revel in their newfound freedom, their worlds were falling apart and soon took on the feel of an endless, dateless New Year's Eve. But, unknown to the adults, underground bands of youth secretly engaged in forbidden activities.
Millennials and Gen Z are considered the loneliest generations.
This really sucks.
Lindsay is part of a group, millennials and younger, that experts refer to as the loneliest generation, and it's something that's been growing even before the pandemic. 5 months before COVID shutdowns, a YouGov survey came out that found 30% of millennials aged 23 to 38 said they always or often felt lonely. 20% said they have no friends. 27% said they have no close friends, and 30% said they have no best friend. A YPulse survey from this March found those numbers were still consistent. For many, it's made the present feel dreadful, with the future bleak.
Nearly 1 in 4 adults across the world report feeling lonely, which is intriguing given the ease of communication in our time. Ironically, it's this very accessibility to communication that appears to have a significant impact on the rise of loneliness.
Erica Manchak is a clinical psychologist. In June, she wrote an article on the loneliness epidemic, in which she said of the many forces that have exacerbated this feeling, technology has played a prominent role. She says while it can create connections, it can also erode the quality of them.
And that's exactly why men are opting out. The quality of the connection, LQWs, low quality women, and it starts with the mentality. It's not about whether the woman is interested or not, as women are not obligated to reciprocate every man's interest. Instead, the focus is on how women carry themselves in their interactions with men. And I just love how Dr. McDonald described it in his piece called Why American Women Are Undateable. Janice, read.
American women today suffer from a combination of emotional and characterologic pathology that renders them unfit to be romantic partners to men. On the emotional side, they are angry, anxious, and dysregulated. Men find them exhausting and not at all fun to be around. In addition to their unpleasant emotions, men must also contend with their toxic personality traits, narcissism, ingratitude, and an overbearing and judgmental attitude that appears to be constant. American women approach dating as a fact and fault-finding mission, with a degree of arrogance that can only come from a profound absence of self-awareness. They have no idea what their role is in the encounter or how to properly support the man who is leading the date. They act as saboteurs rather than facilitators. Most men have tired of this.
Ajax, would you like to kiss me?
Kiss? What is kiss?
It's when you press your lips against someone else's.
Lips? What is lips?
Girlfriends, I think it's time we talk to the men. For the sake of our children, of course.
So it's the children and the next generations that deviate from the values upheld by their predecessors. It's concerning when young men prefer playing video games over going on dates with women. The satisfaction derived from the video game seems to outweigh the effort involved in dating. And the game doesn't come with the inevitable drama that accompanies male-female dynamics. I've said it many times on this channel. Only when something catastrophic happens will men and women find themselves respecting traditional gender roles. These roles are heavily influenced by the environment. In our modern society, technology has advanced to the point where we don't need each other directly to fulfill our primary needs. However, loneliness has not only proven to be unhealthy, but also deadly.
Loneliness, it turns out, is a public health issue. And I would say it has risen to the level of actually being a public health crisis. And it's also extraordinarily common. Around 1 in 2 Americans are experiencing loneliness. When it's persistent or when it's extreme, it can actually come with significant health risks. We now know that loneliness is associated with an increased risk of anxiety and depression and suicide, but it's also associated with an increased risk of heart disease and premature death, as well as dementia. And when you actually look at the mortality impact, at the increased risk of premature death related to loneliness, it's actually comparable to the increased risk of premature death related to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It's greater than the risk associated with obesity. And so there are real mental and physical health consequences to loneliness.
Thus, the loneliness epidemic is undoubtedly part of the catastrophe that's looming.
So, what the hell do you want?
What? Listen, we just want to talk about our feelings.
What?
Clearly, the rift between the sexes has affected your ability to understand each other. Allow me to translate. We missed you. Did you miss us?
Only when we ran out of batteries, but then we got rechargeables.
Yes, we were so lonely.
Listen, we don't care if we ever see you cellulite collection plates again.
We've thought about how terribly we acted, and we're sorry we hurt you.
Up yours, you bony bag of buzzard barf!
We accept your apology.
You want to come crawling back? We'll let you.
We love you.
This is pure gold. There's clearly a disconnect between men and women. We have reached a point where we need a mediator and an interpreter to express our wants and needs and have a chance to be heard. That's why men are not approaching women anymore, because a woman can take it as offensive.
Single men do not approach women in the wild, and here is a perfect example of that. I am a very regular face at my gym. I'm talking like 6 days a week, same time every day, like clockwork. However, in the 1.5 years I've been at that gym, no one has approached me except for one creeper who would not take many polite no's for an answer. Here's where it gets interesting. I have been hit up on the dating apps by more than a handful of those same guys at the gym. I recognize them, they recognize me, and they freely admit that they recognize me. Riddle me that.
It has never been about hating women. It has always been about not feeling appreciated, not being respected, and facing challenges in divorce court. The situations involving Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, as well as Tyrese Gibson and Samantha Lee, serve as stark examples of how easily a woman can unfairly strip a man of his resources, tarnish his reputation, and garner public support without evidence. Many changes are needed before trust can be restored.
Maybe I did learn something. Maybe I learned that we should listen to and respect everyone, whether they're boys or girls.
That's right, Jimmy. Everyone except the Irish.
Patreon supporters, salute! Manosphere, we working. Protect yourself at all times. This video has officially been highlighted.